Hi, so I'm going to review refactoring a project here this time. Um, so basically I'm just going to take a camper MVC project that we've been working on in class and modify it to have a new name. Alright, this is the kind of thing I expect. I'm starting a new project and I'm using an existing project as the starting point. So first thing I'm going to do is open up my project. Okay, so I've downloaded it in Bitbucket. So I'm in the CIS 2232 2017-2018 Part 2 repository, and I'm inside the Topic 3 MVC Part 2 folder. In here I've got two projects, one Camper MVC and the other Camper MVC with JPA and validation. All right, for now I'm just going to look at the Camper MVC project. Okay, so I'm going to open that up from NetBeans. And where am I? Alright, so Camper MVC. Alright, the first thing I want to do is make sure this is running. So I don't want to start modifying anything until I'm sure that the application is going to run. So I'm on 2. Still opening there. Once it opens, I'm going to make sure I run my database script and then try to run the project. Everything should work alright. Okay, so I've got my project open. I'll go down to my other sources and run my database script. So they're always in other sources in the db.mysql folder package. All right, so I'll run that file, connect to the root, and it should run with no errors. Double check, make sure your XAMPP is turned on. Wait, it is. And if it's turned on, I should be able to run my script. Couldn't. Try again. I just started up my XAMPP, so I guess my MySQL wasn't quite ready to go. Alright, so no errors occurred, so things are pretty good for the script. Alright, so as you see, this is going to create the database called Canes and build the required tables. Alright, now my project should run. Let's pause this for a second until that starts. Okay, that took a couple minutes, but my project popped open. Everything seems to be working well. See if I try to go to my list. All right, it's still working well, right? I've got validation. There has to be a username logged in. All right, so if I log in, now it takes me to my list page. So everything seems to be working okay. All right, so I'm going to just look at the modifications just to the project structure that you need to make in order to refactor this, just to get rid of some of the references to camper. So if I want to use this for hockey project, all right, I'm just going to look at it. I'm not going to get into all the changes of the MVC, the views, or the Java and stuff, but I'm just going to modify the project name, the packages, and the Spring configuration that needs to be made. All right, so first off, let's rename the project. So I'm just going to say rename. Then I've got 3 options to rename. Camper MVC. I'm going to change all 3 things. That's what we call it. Hockey. I got that by just right-clicking on the name of the project and saying rename. Okay, so that's going to go. Sometimes you might get an error here if you can't, if you couldn't rename the folder because it's open in NetBeans, or if Tomcat's got a hold of it, or if anything. So what I want to do is see if this here Camper MVC folder gets renamed to Hockey MVC. All right, it looks like it didn't. All right, so what I want to do is just shut down NetBeans, come over here, and rename it to Hockey. Let that finish. There you go. So now it's modified. If it didn't work through NetBeans, you can just rename it at the folder level. Now, whenever I open this back up now, I'll be opening it from the Hockey MVC folder. All right, so I'm just waiting here. My NetBeans is launching again. It's a little bit slow. Anyway, I'm sure it'll be here in a second. Oh, there it comes. So now I'm just going to open it. All right, there we go. So now I've renamed my project. Everything should still work exactly the same. Next step is to refactor the packages. All right, where all the source code is. They all have a package name of info.hccis.camper. So I'm going to refactor these to be info.hccis.hockey. Alright, so my source packages are all contained here. As you see, I have to rename things. Alright, I'm just hitting F2 to rename. It's called Hockey. This is the kind of thing you have to do. I have to do this for all 8 of these packages. And it can be a little slow at times. Alright, so that one's done. Oh, here it goes. And you can hit the you just refactor it. It'll go change any references to the classes used inside that package to what the appropriate new package is. You notice it keeps putting them down to the bottom because they're sorted alphabetically. Alright, I'll just keep going through this process because I want to get to also modify the spring configuration that's using these packages. It's rather tedious, but we're getting there. It's a lot less time than it would be to set up a brand new package, brand new project from scratch. Right, to do that, you'd have to add all your time leaf, all the different requirements for a project into it, and that would be much more complex. Right, so one last one to go. You know, I was very careful not to make any typos. They're all called hockey. And I'm modifying as little as possible. All right, so the last piece I have to do is go modify the spring configuration. The spring is set up to it'll find repository classes. It'll look in the Spring Data JPA for repository classes. It'll go automatically find the controller classes based on the fact that they're inside this web folder. So you have to make sure that we also go check for any references in these Spring config files for those package changes. Okay. And they're not picked up in the refactor. All right, so I'm going to look for .camper. All right, and that's going to help me identify where to change. All right, so you can, all right, we have to be very careful not to break these config files. So you could use find or replace. Control H is what I use there. Just change that to .hockey. So I'm going to find the next one and replace it, and that's commented out. So I would just, this is inside a comment. Just get rid of that one. Replace. So that's all there is for this file. So I just carefully renamed .camper to .hockey to make the appropriate changes in the config files. All right, so I have to check each one. The data access properties file. This doesn't have any config changes as far as the package renaming, but I will eventually have a new database, and the data access properties file tells my project where to connect to the database. So if I'm checking here for a .camper, none found in this one. MVC core config. There's one. So this is where it tells it where to find the controller files. Replace it. Only one. And of course I'm getting a phone call. I'm just going to pause you guys for a sec. Okay, sorry about that. Phone rang, but back here now. So I'll just get back to where I was. Search for my campers. All right, my view is okay. Check this one. I don't think there's anything in here, but worth a check. All right, there we go. So I've modified those 6 files. I modified all of my packages, and I modified my hockey MVC. Last little piece I'll do for this video is to modify modify the context path for this application. So if I right click on the project name and I say properties under the run, I see it right now. Whenever I run it, the context path is going to say Canes. So if I wanted that to say hockey, I'll just put /hockey there. All right, so that's that. I'm going to make sure that it still works at this point. I haven't really done anything, all the functionality of the classes is still related to Canes, but you want to make sure it's working. I suggest you make a backup of, once you get this up and running at this stage of the modifications, make a backup of it. All right, so if you really mess things up, you can go back to the backup at this point. That's assuming that this comes up and launches successfully here. Which hopefully it will. I guess, okay, talk about the next steps I would take would be, all right, so say I've got my camper controller. I'm going to be modifying this probably to start having some hockey functionality. So I probably would modify this or add a hockey controller. My views are contained in my WebInf timely folder. All right, so I probably would have a hockey folder, which would have maybe the functionality to add a hockey player, add list hockey players, that kind of stuff. Similar to what the camper does, but I would have to create that stuff. And then inside my controllers, we'd have changes to make, like the request mappings. All right, these come from the views, from the hyperlinks, for the form actions specified in the views and the HTML pages. All right, I would have to have my new HTML pages would have new request mappings specified. All right, and that would have to be changed as well. My returns would have to be changed, right? Because I no longer would want to go to a camper ad. I might want to go to a hockey ad. All right, so I'm not going to make those changes now in this video. It's getting pretty long. But anyway, that's I want to at least go over, provide a video to get to this point. And my computer's acting really slow. Let me pause here for a sec. Okay, so I'm back. My project did eventually launch without making any further changes. All right, so now you see my context path is now /hockey. Besides that, everything is exactly the same as the old project, right? I've just refactored the project structure a little bit to get rid of the camper references in the package names and the project name and the Spring configuration files. When I log in, everything still works exactly the same. Delete people. But you want to give it a quick little test to make sure it still works the same. So what I would do now, make a backup of this project at this point, and then start working on some more refactoring, adding my hockey functionality, or in your case, your squash player functionality to the application.